Julian Edelman. At Kent State, Julian Edelman was a dual-threat quarterback. In his senior year, he rushed for over 1,300 yards and passed for nearly 1,900 more. He wasn't even on the radar as an NFL wide receiver. Most scouts thought he was too small to play quarterback at the next level. When the New England Patriots drafted him in the 7th round of the 2009 draft, they saw something different: quickness, toughness, and versatility. Edelman made the roster by learning to play wide receiver, a position he had never played before. Early on, he was also used as a punt returner, occasional running back, and even a defensive back in emergencies. The transition paid off. Edelman developed into one of Tom Brady's most reliable targets, thriving in the slot where his quick cuts and fearlessness over the middle made him nearly uncoverable. His postseason resume speaks for itself: 118 catches for 1,442 yards. Antwaan Randle L. At Indiana University, Antwaan Randle L. was a pure quarterback, and a good one. He became the first player in NCAA history to pass for over 6,000 yards and rush for over 3,000 in his career, one of the most electric dual-threat QBs college football had ever seen. But when he entered the NFL in 2002, teams weren't convinced his 5'10" frame and unconventional throwing style would translate at quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers drafted him in the 2nd round and immediately converted him to wide receiver. It was a gamble, but Randle L's athleticism made him an instant weapon. He quickly carved out a role as a slot receiver, return man, and gadget player in Pittsburgh's offense. Where he really left his mark was in trick plays. Because of his quarterback background, the Steelers used him in reverses and gadget passes. The most famous came in Super Bowl 40, when Randle L took a reverse handoff and launched a perfect 43-yard touchdown pass to Hines Ward. It was the first touchdown pass ever thrown by a wide receiver in the Super Bowl, sealing Pittsburgh's championship and cementing Randle L's legacy. Randle L finished his career with nearly 4,500 receiving yards, 15 touchdowns, and a reputation as one of the most versatile players of his era. He never played quarterback in the NFL, but his QB skill set made him one of the league's most unique wideouts, a true do-it-all weapon. Hines Ward. Before Hines Ward became one of the toughest, most reliable wide receivers in NFL history, he was actually a quarterback. At the University of Georgia, Ward started games under center, using his athleticism as both a passer and runner. But he wasn't limited to just quarterback. He also lined up as a running back and wide receiver throughout his college career, showcasing the versatility that would later define him in the NFL. When the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted him in 1998, they committed to turning him into a full-time wide receiver. At 6 feet 0 inches and not especially fast, Ward didn't fit the typical mold of an NFL star wideout. What he did have, however, was toughness, intelligence, and an unmatched willingness to block. Over time, he became the perfect Steeler: gritty, physical, and dependable in clutch moments. Ward went on to have a remarkable career. He finished with 1,000 receptions, over 12,000 yards, and 85 touchdowns, becoming the Steelers' all-time leader in nearly every receiving category. He was also the MVP of Super Bowl 40, hauling in 5 catches and a touchdown in Pittsburgh's win. But what really made him unique was his blocking. Ward developed a reputation as one of the best blocking wide receivers of all time, routinely flattening linebackers and safeties. His physical style changed how teams thought about wideouts. They weren't just pass catchers, they could be tone setters. Marlin Briscoe. Marlin Briscoe's story is one of the most groundbreaking in NFL history. Drafted in 1968 by the Denver Broncos, he entered the league as a quarterback from Omaha University. At the time, black quarterbacks were rarely given opportunities in the NFL, but injuries forced Denver to give Briscoe a chance. When he started in October 1968, Briscoe became the first black starting quarterback in the Super Bowl era. He made an immediate impact, throwing 14 touchdown passes in just 5 starts. Still a rookie record for Denver. He proved he could play at the highest level, but after that season, the Broncos didn't give him another shot at quarterback. Instead, Briscoe reinvented himself as a wide receiver. He was traded to the Buffalo Bills, where he made the Pro Bowl in 1970 after catching 57 passes for over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Over the next decade, he carved out a successful career as a receiver, finishing with nearly 3,600 yards and 30 touchdowns. Briscoe's journey was bittersweet. He broke barriers at quarterback, only to be pushed out of the position due to the racial biases of the time. Yet his ability to switch to wide receiver and still become a star showed both his talent and resilience. Cordell Stewart. Cordell Stewart earned the nickname Slash because of the way he slashed across multiple positions early in his NFL career. Drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1995, Stewart came into the league as a quarterback from Colorado, but the Steelers saw his athleticism as too valuable to limit to just one role. In his first few seasons, Stewart lined up everywhere: quarterback, wide receiver, and even running back. He'd take snaps under center, then, on the next play, be split wide to catch a pass, or motion into the backfield for a handoff. This versatility made him one of the most unique offensive weapons of the late 90s. The Steelers leaned into the creativity. In 1997, Stewart finally took over as the full-time starting quarterback, leading Pittsburgh to an 11-5 record and an AFC Championship game appearance. That season, he accounted for 32 total touchdowns, 21 passing and 11 rushing, showcasing how dangerous his dual threat abilities were. But Stewart's career as a quarterback was inconsistent. Some years, he flashed brilliance, like in 2001 when he made the Pro Bowl and again led the Steelers to the AFC Championship. Other years, turnovers and erratic play made him a lightning rod for criticism. What never changed, though, was his versatility. Stewart finished his career with more than 14,000 passing yards, nearly 3,000 rushing yards, and 120 total touchdowns. He also caught passes, something few quarterbacks have ever done. Eric Metcalf. Eric Metcalf was one of the most versatile players of the 1990s, a do-it-all weapon who could line up almost anywhere on the field. Drafted in the first round by the Cleveland Browns in 1989, he entered the NFL primarily as a running back and return specialist. With his blazing speed and shiftiness, he was dangerous every time he touched the ball. Early in his career, Metcalf was used out of the backfield, but he was never a classic between the tackles runner. He was 5 feet 10 inches and about 190 pounds, built more like a sprinter than a bruiser. Coaches quickly realized his best value came when they could get him the ball in space. That's when Metcalf started lining up as a wide receiver. By splitting him out wide or into the slot, teams maximized his quickness and agility against defensive backs. Over his 13-year career, Metcalf caught more than 540 passes for over 5,500 yards, a remarkable total for someone drafted as a running back. Combined with his rushing production and his legendary return skills, 10 career punt return touchdowns, one of the highest totals in NFL history. Metcalf became the definition of a Swiss Army knife. He never had the bruising numbers of a traditional running back, but his ability to switch roles kept him in the league for over a decade. Ty Montgomery. Ty Montgomery entered the NFL in 2015 as a wide receiver out of Stanford. Drafted in the 3rd round by the Green Bay Packers, he was seen as a versatile pass catcher who could line up in the slot, outside, or on special teams. But injuries and roster needs pushed Montgomery into one of the most dramatic position switches in modern NFL history. Midway through the 2016 season, the Packers were decimated at running back. Eddie Lacy and James Starks went down, leaving the backfield empty. That's when head coach Mike McCarthy made the call. Ty Montgomery, the wide receiver, would play running back. To the surprise of many, he thrived. Montgomery's combination of size, 6 feet 0 inches, 220 pounds, speed, and vision fit perfectly in Green Bay's offense. He rushed for 457 yards that year, averaging an impressive 5.9 yards per carry, including a breakout game against the Chicago Bears, where he ran for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. From then on, Montgomery was officially listed as a running back, though his wide receiver background gave him unique value. He could motion out of the backfield to create mismatches, catch passes like a natural wide receiver, and still handle traditional rushing duties. His career after Green Bay included stints with the Ravens, Jets, Saints, and Patriots, where he continued to move between wideout and running back depending on the team's needs. Cordarrelle Patterson. When Cordarrelle Patterson entered the NFL in 2013 as a first-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings, he was drafted to be a wide receiver. His size, 6 feet 2 inches, speed, and kick return skills made him an exciting prospect. Early on, he flashed as a return man, even making the Pro Bowl as a rookie. But as a pure wide receiver, Patterson struggled with route running and consistency. For years, he was labeled a gadget player who never lived up to his draft position. That all changed when coaches began rethinking how to use him. In 2018 with the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick experimented with Patterson as a running back due to injuries at the position. Suddenly, Patterson's straight-line speed and physicality became a real weapon out of the backfield. The experiment opened the door to a full career transformation. By the time he joined the Atlanta Falcons in 2021, Patterson had fully reinvented himself. Arthur Smith's offense turned him into a true hybrid running back/receiver. That year, he rushed for over 600 yards, added over 500 as a receiver, and scored 11 total touchdowns. He earned second-team All-Pro honors and became one of the NFL's most dynamic, multi-purpose players. Patterson's late career switch extended his time in the league and reshaped how people viewed him. No longer a first-round bust, he became one of the best examples of adaptability in NFL history. A 4-time All-Pro returner who, in his 30s, transformed into a versatile offensive weapon. Ronnie Brown. Ronnie Brown was drafted 2nd overall by the Miami Dolphins in 2005, entering the NFL as a running back from Auburn. He had the size, speed, and versatility to be a feature back, and early in his career, he showed flashes of greatness, including a Pro Bowl season in 2008. But what really made Brown unique was how Miami used him in a formation that took the league by storm, the Wildcat offense. In 2008, under head coach Tony Sparano, the Dolphins unveiled the Wildcat, a direct snap formation where Brown lined up as the quarterback. From there, he could hand the ball off, run himself, or even throw. While it wasn't a brand new concept in football, the Dolphins version with Brown at the center caught defenses completely off guard. In a Week 3 game against the New England Patriots, Brown rushed for 4 touchdowns and threw for another out of the Wildcat. Miami stunned New England 38-13, and suddenly every team in the NFL was trying to copy the formation. For that season, Ronnie Brown wasn't just a running back. He was the triggerman of one of the league's most innovative offensive wrinkles. Though the Wildcat faded as defenses adjusted and the spread offense took over, Brown's role in popularizing it remains a key part of NFL history. He finished his career with over 5,000 rushing yards and 38 touchdowns. But his legacy is tied to that brief period where he blurred the line between quarterback and running back. Harold Carmichael. When Harold Carmichael was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in 1971, he wasn't initially seen as the dominant wide receiver he would later become. In fact, the 6'8" prospect was first listed as a tight end. At that size, with long arms and a massive frame, coaches thought he'd fit better working over the middle of the field and blocking in the run game. But when the Eagles experimented with him at wide receiver, Carmichael's career and NFL history changed forever. His height gave him an unmatched advantage on the outside. Defensive backs simply couldn't match up with his reach, and quarterbacks could throw the ball higher than anyone else on the field could reach. Over time, Carmichael perfected the art of using his size as a weapon. He became the go-to deep threat and red zone target for Philadelphia, and his conversion to receiver turned him into the cornerstone of their offense through the 1970s. By the time he retired, Carmichael had racked up more than 8,900 receiving yards, 79 touchdowns, and 4 Pro Bowl selections. He also set an NFL record with 127 consecutive games with a reception, a streak that stood for decades. His impact was finally recognized when he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2020. Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe's career is one of the best examples of how a position switch can change a player's life and rewrite NFL history. Coming out of tiny Savannah State, Sharpe was a wide receiver, At the college level, his size, 6 feet 2 inches, 230 pounds. When the Denver Broncos drafted him in the 7th round of the 1990 draft, they made a pivotal decision: move him from wide receiver to tight end. That single change unlocked Sharpe's Hall of Fame career. As a tight end, Sharpe was a matchup nightmare. He was too fast for linebackers to cover and too physical for defensive backs to handle. His wide receiver background gave him refined route running skills and reliable hands, making him one of John Elway's most trusted weapons throughout the 1990s. Sharpe went on to revolutionize the position. He finished with 815 receptions, over 10,000 yards, and 62 touchdowns, becoming the first tight end in NFL history to surpass 10,000 receiving yards. He won 3 Super Bowls, was named to the 1990s All-Decade Team, and was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2011. Richard Sherman. Before Richard Sherman became one of the most feared cornerbacks in the NFL, he was actually a wide receiver. At Stanford, Sherman entered as a tall, athletic pass catcher who showed flashes of big play ability. In his first 2 seasons, he racked up over 1,000 receiving yards and several touchdowns. But after suffering a knee injury in 2008, his role as a wideout started to slip. That's when Sherman made the decision that changed his career. He switched to cornerback. The move wasn't easy. He had to completely relearn the game from the opposite perspective. But his receiver background gave him a huge advantage. He understood route concepts, timing, and how wideouts tried to create separation. His size, 6 feet 3 inches, and length made him a perfect fit to press at the line of scrimmage. And his competitiveness did the rest. Drafted in the 5th round by the Seattle Seahawks in 2011, Sherman quickly proved the transition had paid off. By his 3rd season, he was an All-Pro and the vocal leader of Seattle's Legion of Boom defense. He helped the Seahawks dominate en route to a Super Bowl 48 championship, and his career highlights, including the iconic tipped pass in the 2013 NFC Championship against the 49ers, cemented his reputation as one of the best corners of his era. Sherman finished with 5 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro selections, and 37 interceptions. J.J. Watt. Before J.J. Watt became one of the most dominant defensive players in NFL history, he actually began his football journey on the opposite side of the ball. At Central Michigan, Watt entered college as a tight end. At 6 feet 5 inches, 230 pounds, he was seen as a project player with raw athleticism but little refinement. Coaches tried him at tight end for 1 season, but Watt felt his potential was being wasted, so he made a bold move. He transferred to the University of Wisconsin and switched to defensive line. It was a complete career reset. He had to gain weight, learn hand technique, and develop the instincts to play in the trenches. Watt paid his own way at Wisconsin as a walk-on, betting on himself to make it. The gamble worked. Within 2 years, he bulked up to nearly 290 pounds, became a force on Wisconsin's defensive line, and was drafted 11th overall by the Houston Texans in 2011. What followed was one of the most dominant defensive careers the NFL has ever seen. Watt won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 2012, 2014, 2015, recorded 220-plus sack seasons, and became the face of the Texans franchise. His motor, athleticism, and relentlessness made him unblockable at his peak. Off the field, his humanitarian work, especially raising over $40 million for Hurricane Harvey relief, cemented his status as one of the most respected figures in sports. Patrick Ricard. Patrick Ricard is one of the most unique players in the modern NFL, a true two-way talent who built his reputation by completely switching sides of the ball. At the University of Maine, Ricard played defensive line, where he racked up tackles and sacks as a disruptive force. When he went undrafted in 2017, the Baltimore Ravens picked him up as a defensive prospect. But in training camp, the coaches noticed something unusual. Ricard's size, footwork, and toughness made him an ideal fit on the other side of the ball as a fullback. The Ravens experimented with Ricard as a blocker, and he proved to be so effective that he stuck with the offense. Over time, he grew into one of the league's best fullbacks, earning multiple Pro Bowl selections. At 6 feet 3 inches and 300 pounds, Ricard is far bigger than a typical fullback, which makes him devastating as a lead blocker. He clears lanes for Baltimore's run-heavy attack, particularly for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens' stable of running backs. What makes a Ricard especially rare is that Baltimore didn't fully give up on his defensive skills. Early in his career, he occasionally played snaps on both sides of the ball, lining up at defensive tackle in short yardage situations and fullback on offense. Few players in modern football have managed that kind of two-way impact. Taysom Hill. Few players in NFL history have been as versatile or as polarizing as Taysom Hill. Coming out of BYU in 2017, Hill was listed as a quarterback. He had shown flashes of dual threat ability in college, but injuries and inconsistency left doubts about whether he could succeed as a full-time NFL QB. When the New Orleans Saints claimed him off waivers, head coach Sean Payton saw something different. Not just a quarterback, but a true Swiss Army knife. Hill carved out a unique role in New Orleans, lining up at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and even playing on special teams coverage units. He wasn't just a gadget, he was a legitimate contributor. As a runner, he bulldozed defenders. As a receiver, he stretched the field. As a quarterback, he provided a change of pace wrinkle in the Saints' offense. Over time, the Saints began deploying him as part of their weekly game plan. He'd take snaps in red zone packages, catch passes in the slot, return kicks, and block punts. By 2020, he had even started games at quarterback when Drew Brees was injured, proving he could at least function as a passer when needed. Statistically, Hill's career is all over the place. Rushing touchdowns, receiving scores, passing completions, special teams tackles. He embodies pure versatility in a way few NFL players ever have. While critics argue he's never been elite at one position, his ability to fill so many roles has made him a valuable asset. Terrelle Pryor. At Ohio State, Terrelle Pryor was one of the most electric quarterbacks in the country. Standing 6 feet 4 inches with elite speed and athleticism, he led the Buckeyes to multiple Big Ten titles and a Rose Bowl victory. But his college career ended in controversy, and when he entered the NFL through the supplemental draft, teams weren't sure if his passing skills would translate at the pro level. Drafted by the Oakland Raiders in 2011, Pryor started out as a quarterback. He showed flashes, most notably a 93-yard touchdown run in 2013, the longest ever by a quarterback. Still, his inconsistency as a passer and struggles to command an offense made it hard for him to stick in the role long-term. By 2015, Pryor reinvented himself. After bouncing around multiple teams, he committed to switching positions from quarterback to wide receiver. It wasn't an easy transition, but his size, speed, and athleticism made him a natural fit. In 2016 with the Cleveland Browns, Pryor had his breakout season, 77 receptions, 1,007 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He became one of the few players in NFL history to have both a 1,000-yard passing season, college, and a 1,000-yard receiving season, NFL. Unfortunately, injuries and inconsistency kept Pryor from sustaining that success. After brief stints with Washington, the Jets, and Buffalo, his career fizzled out. But his ability to switch from a college superstar quarterback to an NFL 1,000-yard wide receiver remains one of the most remarkable position changes of the modern era. Denard Robinson. At the University of Michigan, Denard Robinson was one of the most electric quarterbacks in the nation. Nicknamed Shoelace for playing with his cleats untied, Robinson was a dynamic dual-threat quarterback who rushed for over 4,000 yards and passed for more than 6,000 in his career. His speed and playmaking made him a fan favorite and a Heisman contender. But when Robinson entered the NFL in 2013, scouts doubted his ability to transition as a professional quarterback. At just 6 feet and 200 pounds, with an inconsistent throwing motion, teams didn't see him fitting as a starter under center. The Jacksonville Jaguars drafted him in the 5th round and quickly converted him to a running back/wide receiver hybrid. Listed on the roster as an offensive weapon, Robinson's role was unique. He returned kicks, lined up in the slot, took direct snaps, and worked out of the backfield. By 2014, he found success as a running back, rushing for 582 yards and 4 touchdowns while averaging 4.3 yards per carry. Though not a long-term starter, he brought versatility to Jacksonville's offense. Robinson's NFL career lasted 4 seasons, finishing with over 1,300 rushing yards and more than 600 return yards. While he never stuck at one position, his adaptability and athleticism allowed him to contribute in multiple ways. Anquan Boldin came into the NFL in 2003 as a second-round pick by the Arizona Cardinals. But long before he became a star wide receiver, he was actually a quarterback. At Florida State, Boldin was recruited as a quarterback and even started games at the position early in his college career. Coaches eventually transitioned him to wide receiver to better utilize his size, hands, and physicality. That switch proved to be the turning point of his football journey. As a wideout, Boldin became one of the toughest, most reliable receivers of his generation. In his very first NFL game, he set the tone for his career by exploding for 217 receiving yards, still the most ever by a rookie in a debut. He went on to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Over his 14-year NFL career, Boldin became known for his fearless style. At 6 feet 1 inch and over 220 pounds, he was built more like a running back than a receiver. He used that frame to dominate defenders across the middle of the field, absorbing hits and making contested catches look routine. He played for the Cardinals, Ravens, 49ers, and Lions, finishing with 1,076 receptions, 13,779 yards, and 82 touchdowns. Boldin was a 3-time Pro Bowler and won a Super Bowl with the Ravens in 2013, where he was a key part of their championship run. Lane Johnson is now recognized as one of the best offensive tackles in football, a cornerstone of the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, and a Super Bowl champion. But his path to becoming an all-pro tackle is one of the most unique position switch stories in NFL history. At Kilgore Junior College, Johnson started his football career as a quarterback. At 6 feet 6 inches with a big frame, he had the size, but coaches quickly realized his future wasn't under center. When he transferred to the University of Oklahoma, Johnson first tried tight end, then moved to defensive line, before finally finding his permanent home at offensive tackle. The move unlocked his full potential. With his rare combination of size, agility, and athleticism from his quarterback and tight end days, Johnson became one of the most athletic tackles in the nation. The Eagles drafted him 4th overall in 2013, and he immediately stepped into his starting role. Over the years, Johnson has become the definition of consistency. A 6-time Pro Bowler and 2-time first-team All-Pro, he's been the anchor at right tackle for some of the best offensive lines in football. His dominance in both pass protection and run blocking has helped the Eagles field elite offenses, including their Super Bowl 52 championship team. What makes Johnson's story remarkable is how many times he switched positions before finding the right one, from quarterback to tight end to defensive end, and finally to offensive tackle. Every stop added a layer of athleticism and understanding that helped shape him into one of the most complete linemen in the NFL today.